We are representing Brewers and Union. It's our latest venture. It's nearly 4 years on. And we see ourselves as brand builders, firstly. It's quite a hard thing to sum up what we do. In fact, I met one of the delegates yesterday, the day before, and she asked me what I do, and I couldn't really give her an answer. And it's because it changes for us, and what we try and do is find an opportunity and really explore that opportunity to the full gambit. And we do that from two sort of perspectives. The one is that we've realized that great ideas come along, and any monkey can have a good idea. There's a lot of good ideas out there, but building a brand really takes a long time, and that's one of the first learnings that we've had, is that it's something that doesn't just happen overnight. It's something that goes beyond concept, beyond a sketch on a piece of paper or a set of drawings or an idea. It's something that you need to have a lot of patience for. And the second approach that we always do is that we come as consumers very humbly to our product, and that's really been the inspiration for us, is to see ourselves as punters. What is it that we would like to see? How would we like to see something done differently? Is there any way that we can improve on something that's existing? And that's really what we've tried to adapt through and work on. And then I'll start with where we probably should end, and that's our learnings of the last 10, 11 years. Both Rui and I have either very consciously tried to approach our business with these principles, and if we haven't managed to do that from the onset, we've definitely learned it along the way. The first thing is focus. For us, it was always about picking one thing and becoming extremely good at it, or figuring out the best way to do it so that you become known for that. And that's probably the point where we should apologize to any tea drinkers in the audience. Those of you that have been to Vida Caffé would know about that. Patience is another thing that we've had to learn. It's not something that we've had to try. People have always asked us about the success and how did it happen, and it happened so quickly, and that's never really the case. In fact, it's far from the truth. And patience is one of those things, if you believe in what you're doing, you've just got to stick at it and get through the hard times. I love what you do. Obviously, you've got to believe in what you're doing. You've got to wake up every morning wanting to do it, and it just makes it a whole bunch easier. I saw a trailer for the film that's been made on the life of Bill Cunningham, the New York street photographer. And there's a little quote in it there. He says, if you don't take their cash, they can't tell you what to do. And I think it's kind of pertinent for us at least. And then the last one is build a community. And that's one thing that happened firstly through us tapping into the wealth of our staff and picking the right guys to work with us, that they can take our brand beyond what we do. And secondly, to you guys, because both our businesses, currently we're busy ferreting away at building a real strong community, and our previous business was built on a good sense of community that couldn't have happened. It's not something that we could consciously do. That's beyond you. Just a brief bit of history, a bit of blurry photos for you, because we started out in 99, 2000, spent a bit of time in London, and saw a bit of a sort of macro trend evolving from a restaurant and dining point of view, a shift towards healthier food, and very inspired by the boom of the juice bar revolution and people drinking wheatgrass and all that kind of stuff, and came back to South Africa and saw big gaps in what and how people were eating. We started a little bagel bar called Fresh, and we served fresh smoothies, freshly baked bagels, and coffee. And at the time, it was a great experience, very swift learning curve for us. And just to reiterate a little bit about patience, I think we kind of sold that business a little too soon. Had we stuck it out, we would have seen a very different result. But it did give us some really great opportunities. From then on, we went out and decided we were going to be consultants. So we started to do one or two little jobs for customers and clients. One of them was the Rugby House Hotel at the UPC, HPC at Tukey's University, developing a restaurant and a hotel concept for a high-performance center with ITI. One or two other little projects on the side. We've kind of figured out that we don't really make good service providers in the sense that we don't really like working for people. And it was a couple of enlightening moments. We realized that there's still a gap in the market for coffee. And if we had to ask ourselves why we did it, was also part, and this is kind of where we are now, and we'll talk more about what we're up to at the moment with Brewers and Union, but it was part out of frustration, part out of passion. Frustrated from the sense that we couldn't get the product that we wanted, and it wasn't available, and the culture didn't exist, and passion because we really like coffee, and we really like beer, you put those two together, and that's, you kind of find yourself taking leaps. If we look at what was existing in the country at the time, we did have a coffee culture, but it wasn't one that we adopted. It wasn't one that we believed in. It was very much a traditional coffee sense. It's coffee house of South Africa, where drip coffee was the norm, and you'd go to a coffee house for anything but coffee, as fried eggs and steak, and as well you could get some coffee. So that was the first thing that we saw. The second thing was the sort of what we call the Disney-fied coffee culture that had been placed on South Africa, and that has had its merits, and it definitely started creating a market and growing coffee. But it was something that was very foreign to us to go and, unless you traveled, the idea of a double frappe latte combo caramel mocha choca didn't really make sense. And also we felt that there wasn't enough focus in terms of what the product was offering. So we decided to focus purely on espresso and find some kind of medium between living in Africa and having European roots. Vida Caffé, that's our first store on Kloof Street. We opened in 2001, and we really just drove home those notions of focus and patience, and stuck to our guns. It was an amazing learning curve for us, but more than anything that we got out of the Vida experience was building the sense of community that started to erupt around it. Thank you. No heckling yet. It was described as a slice of Europe on African streets, so that was a huge compliment for us because we wanted to try and how did we remain authentic to being in South Africa and also offer something that was clean, uncluttered, and a very different environment to what was there. And slowly but surely we started to win the right people over, and they brought their friends. It was really great to see. I think the seminal, pivotal moment in our Vida plan was when we stepped aside and our staff took that over. But that's what we became known for. People talk about our staff, but it had a lot more to do with consistency. It was about consistency of service and consistency of product. And then as we moved on, I'd be hearing people, I still hear it now, it's really pretty cool. You walk through the Oliver Tambo security and someone says, oh, have we got enough time for a Vida? Which is a huge compliment to what the guys that bought the business from us have done in growing that. That's the original shop, and before I hand over to Rui, just the last bit of compliment, I guess, was we went up to Joburg to look for some sites before we opened the green side, and someone told us that we'd already opened in Melville, so we decided to go and have a look at our store, and we found Ish Caffé. So I suppose that's pretty cool.
Okay, so 2006, and we sold Vida. Some people ask us still to this day, do we regret it? And looking back now, we don't, because I think Brad and I had kind of done our job to kind of establish or create a culture and kind of push it on its way and let it become what it has become. And people always ask us, another question is, from coffee to beer, why? Well, from traveling to Europe again and again, as we do and as we did before we had created Vida, we noticed that beer was such an integral part of various cultures in Europe. It meant different things to different people and different cultures, and we saw something interesting in not only the way that they drank beer, but the way that they ate and they drank. And we thought, well, coffee is a stimulating beverage. Beer is certainly a stimulating beverage, and South Africa was missing that proper European beer culture that that Europe had. You go to Germany, you go to Czechoslovakia, you go to Belgium, you see it. And so we thought, well, we kind of did it with coffee. We kind of had espresso culture on the streets of Cape Town now and expanding to Joburg. Why not do something with beer? And through our travels, we noticed specifically in Belgium, the refinement they had with beer and the elegance they had with beer and the way they paired beer with food. And to them, it was automatic. They weren't thinking about it. They were just doing it. It was in their blood. So we thought, okay, well, back to 2006, and let's look at beer in South Africa. I don't know if you can see that, but SAB had 97% of the market. So we thought, all right, okay, what are we doing now? How much is 97% of the South African beer market in 2006? It's 2.6 billion liters of beer. And it didn't really sit well in my brain until I tried to condense it down. That's 2.6 million containers a year, or 7,000 per day, or 5 every minute. Now, if you still don't comprehend how much beer that is, it's one of these container ships every 2 days. So we thought, okay, all right, let's look at what's available. Let's look at the premium sector of the market and see what we have. And they all look pretty similar to this, and the packaging was all the same. They were all really shouting out the same message, and they all tasted the same too. And we all know about those blind tastes that people swear by a certain brand, and then they can't identify it in a lineup in a blind tasting. So we thought, all right, we could do something here. We saw an opportunity for a small batch brewed beer that was a little bit more elegant, a little bit more refined, just like the Belgians had showed us. But also, perhaps they could be paired with food, and perhaps they didn't have to all be a pale lager. They could be in different styles. So whatever we were going to do, we knew that it had to be something very different, and also it had to stand out anywhere in the world, and the quality had to be as integral as the design or as the packaging or as the positioning for the beer. So this is what we came up with. Oops, not that. This is what we came up with as a range of 3 very different beers meant to be paired with food, and we called it a luxury range of beers. We packaged it in champagne bottles with etched bottles and champagne corks. We talked to wine drinkers about flavor and aroma. We talked to women about the refinement of the product, and really we're fanatical about the balance and the taste. And looking back, of course, that's something that's really not associated with beer, or wasn't associated with beer at the time, was refinement, balance, elegance, flavor, and aroma. People weren't talking about that when they were talking about beer back in 2006. And so we started off on this journey, and things were going great. We were selling in Durban, Cape Town, Johannesburg, Namibia, and even Spain. And we also started having a little bit of fun with some strong ales. I don't know if you can see it properly there, but we did our little version of the Guernica. And it's a little bit, should be censored there though. So during our time growing and learning about beer and growing our distribution, we realized how really advanced what we were trying to sell was. The retailers didn't understand it, the restaurants didn't understand it, and we really have a hard time kind of communicating what we were trying to do. And perhaps it was the packaging size, perhaps it was a little bit too advanced, too soon, and perhaps it was too much of a departure from what people were used to as being called premium beer. So out of our frustration again and our passion, we asked ourselves the question, what if we built a shrine to our beer? What if we built a place where we had direct contact with our consumers, a place where we could have pairings, tastings, and events, a place where we could teach people about real beer? And we decided that to commemorate this, we would also release a new range of products from the lessons we had learned in a different packaging. Smaller bottles, more honest, simpler colors, a little bit more approachable. And the beer itself would also be more rustic, classic German, Belgian styles of beers. German styles of beers. So we decided to build our shrine, and we decided to call both our shrine and our range Brewers and Union. And we decided to put the shrine underneath Cape Town's oldest church. It's in Bree Street in Cape Town. It's a very old photograph. I don't know how old it is, but the church itself is 200 years old. And here's some photos of it now. It's the interior. A funny thing happened though, something very unexpected. The church didn't really appreciate us putting the word Brewers on their 200-year-old wall. And we were pretty much finished building, and we had no budget, so we just dropped the name Brewers, and now it's called and Union. So things don't always come out as you plan. So we opened the beer salon, and things were going well, very slowly, but slowly people really started to understand what we were trying to do. It was a hard, long slog, and it is still a hard, long slog to educate people from quite an established, different culture of beer in South Africa. And we saw something happening. We saw that our heritage range on the left started selling rapidly and outselling our luxury range on the right. And we saw a pattern happening. So we thought, okay, well, why don't we just expand our heritage range and start dropping off our luxury range? Because clearly we were doing something right. We didn't know what it was. It could have been a number of reasons. It could have been the packaging. It could have been the beer inside. We didn't know. We just knew that something was happening. So we went and started introducing new lines to our heritage range. This is the first one. This is a Step Weiss. It's a Weiss beer. It's bright yellow. You can see it. You can spot it anywhere. It was to denote the banana flavor of the beer, so to speak. And it's our top seller. And it's pretty much identifiable anywhere in any bar. Next to come to the heritage range was our burn. And again, you can see a pattern forming here with our bright colors, and we're really trying to demystify what beer was, and at the same time expands people's idea of what it can be. This has also got a very, very loyal following. So there's our range as it stands today. And fast forward to 2010, things are really hotting up, and little brewers are opening up all over the place. And we thought, no, we need to do something with this. So last year, we got together with another small brewer, and as Brad was talking about building community earlier, we rounded up some more brewers, and we had our first real beer festival in Cape Town in September. It was a huge success, and it really kind of showed us that we were doing something right. And not just us, but all the small brewers that were trying to change the perceptions of beer in South Africa. So this is a little clip. It kind of encapsulates what the real beer movement is about and who our customer is. I'd just like to mention that we actually found that video on the internet. I've never met the guy who made that video. We just thought it was interesting that someone had kind of captured the essence of what we were trying to do that day at the Craft Beer Festival. And we're having one again on the 20th of March, so be there. And that's it for us.